Hi Pisces, welcome to your June reading. Happy Gemini season. Whew. All right, it's a deep one. So the title of your video is Jupiter Illusions. Now we know Jupiter's in your sign, but on the 20th of June, it's gonna go retrograde. So for you, between that and Mercury being retrograde as of the 29th, the question that you're being asked is, are you satisfied? You've done a lot. You've actually done some incredible work recently, and all these new doors have opened because of that, and you're feeling really blessed. But are you satisfied? The thing about Jupiter is that it's going to expand whatever is there. So if there is something in you that still wants to go deeper, do more, do something more meaningful, Jupiter's going to pick up on it. And the retrograde is a great time to reflect on that and perhaps make even more changes. You cannot be afraid of changes now. The thing is, when things are going well, we have a tendency to develop a sense of stagnation. Because things are going well, we don't want to rock the boat. This is really so great that why should I change now, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Pisceans have to move. You have to continually evolve. You have to feel that water rushing by you, right? So in June, that question of being satisfied reaches a fever pitch, and an opportunity comes along pretty much when you feel like you can't take it anymore, right? When you feel kind of trapped by this question, an opportunity comes up that is perfect. And that's also very Jupiterian, right? Lets you kind of sweat it out and then give you the gifts. All right, so first up we have the Knight of Wands in reverse and that Gemini card. It's interesting because so many of you are dealing with a Gemini family relationship where you find it almost impossible to communicate. So Mercury retrograde, especially when it comes to familial relationships, really brings up some very sensitive issues, things that you really don't want to talk about and you don't want to deal with. But it's interesting that this does tie back to the question of being satisfied. You may think that the two are not related, but they are. And you're going to see that in June. So I don't think it can get much clearer than the Knight of Wands in reverse, that you really need to watch what you say. This Mercury retrograde, the first thing I have written down here is don't speak or, don't speak or in any way comment on it, not with your looks, not with your expression. Don't do anything until you've thought it all the way through, because it's just so easy, especially when it hits a sensitive spot, for you to mean one thing but say another and really cause some deep rifts, right? So be careful, especially if you have an older maternal figure who's a Gemini. It's very easy to destroy relationships right now. And of course, we don't want to do that. Now, as I said, on the 20th, Jupiter goes retrograde, and it's time to work on yourself. And one of the things that is constantly needing reevaluation with you is what you're holding on to too tight, because it really does keep you from that evolution. So as of the 20th, you're wrestling with this Four of Pentacles energy. I really want to hold on. This guy doesn't know any better. He really does think that this is as good as it's going to get. So there's no blame to be assigned here. There's no judgment. He doesn't know any better. The Ace of Pentacles is not a reality to him. As far as he's concerned, if he can't put his feet on it or put his arms around it or, carry it on top of his head, it doesn't exist. And you will see when Jupiter goes retrograde where you are behaving in this way and where you are thinking in this way. Again, circling back to that question of, are you satisfied? Can you truly answer that question if you are holding on to something in desperation? You can't. You can't. So you see how it works in tandem. From the 2nd to the 27th, Venus is in Cancer. And so you feel for the first time that people are holding that space for you like you are so often doing for them. right? You have people just wanting to be there. They don't need you to explain what's going on. They don't need to even know how you're feeling. They just want to be there in case you need to lean on them. And the people you're going to pick out of your friends and family in June are those that unconditionally can be there for you. It's not just that they unconditionally love you, they know how to unconditionally support you. A lot of people love you and they don't know how to support you because you are so, forgive the trite, use of the word here, but you are so nebulous, you are so dreamy that oftentimes they assume that they don't understand you. They assume that they need to tell you how it is. This is the real world. But in June, you find that there are people who appreciate the way that you are. And this sort of, nebulous existence makes sense to them. And even when it doesn't, they don't need you to make sense of it. And they're not here to tell you how it is. They're just here to support you and how you're feeling. Those people are gold. And while Venus is in Cancer, you feel it. And you're appreciative for it because it's a real sort of support, right? It's really good. Now, there are other people, by that same token, that you will see. There you are. There are other people you will realize who don't support you, who have pretended to support you, pretended to be there for you, pretended to be your friend, but really they were using you all along. And this lunar eclipse, which is tonight, from now until June 10th, eclipse season, where there's solar eclipse in Gemini, this eclipse season, you do have this moonlight shining on them. You do see who really sees you and supports you for who you are, and who really sees you and wants to use you for who you really are. And it hurts, because who wants to think that that's how people are? You would think that if people really knew you, they would unconditionally support and love you because you're wonderful. And then when you realize, no, this person actually has a really good idea of who I am, and they chose to use me instead of love me, when in fact they could have gotten so much more out of me if they just loved me. It's not even a smart move. Why? But that's how people are. So, that's how people are sounds so cynical, and I just have to remind you that it is Gemini season. We can be a bit cynical, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationships. And then we have Mars moving into Leo. So it's good for you to figure out if you're satisfied or not, because as of the 11th, you're feeling super bold and you want to make bold overtures and you want to take on bold and exciting projects. And so what I was saying about that lucky time where as soon as you figure out if you're satisfied or not, as soon as you figure out what the next evolution is, something comes in and it's gorgeous, Mars moves into Leo and those offers start to come in. Your skills are appreciated not just at work. When Mars moves into Leo, the things that you're good at are now appreciated by the people around you who have nothing to do with your job. Also, for some of you, it means that you're finally moving to a realm within your career life where people outside of your department, your field, your niche are beginning to recognize you, and your appeal grows massively, right? Your reach grows massively. The opportunities that are coming in are so much bigger than whatever small piece of the world you have perfected. So it's really exciting. Now, I have something written down here that I'm almost, hesitating to say because it's such a read, but it's also so important. I have written here, don't try to stand out when you're already in the spotlight, right? So, sorry, it's just really hot. Don't try to stand out when all eyes are already on you is something that I think Pisceans struggle with. Oftentimes it can be really uncomfortable for you because you feel like you need or want more attention or more acclaim, but You know, why aren't you getting it? And so, and from the outside, people are looking at you and going, no, you're getting all of it. Like, why do you even need to behave this way when everybody's already paying attention to you and everybody already recognizes you? And that does speak to your fears, your insecurities, your inadequacies really manifesting in the external. So you may feel, you know, that you are just the Knight of Cups. But in June, that Ace of Swords is a new mind. And you realize that you are, in fact, the center of things and that everybody is paying attention to you. And it makes everything so much easier. Because you stop trying to get that attention, that acclaim, that recognition. And as with everything else, once you stop trying, it just flows to you so easily. Three of Pentacles in the World. In fact, it can flow to you so easily that not only do you gain the fame, the fortune, the acclaim, but also the financial stability, especially within a family dynamic that you have been searching for a while and may have been pretty elusive up until now. It all starts with you realizing that you are, in fact, the center. Now, moving forward, I have some notes here, as you can tell. Now, it's also important at this time, Ace of Swords, Three of Pentacles, to realize who's in your inner circle, who shouldn't be. So there are a couple of people around you who are just, for lack of a better word, traitors. You know, they just are not there for you. They do not have your best interest at heart. And they've been playing you right in front of you for a while now. And they're the, you know, you realize they're the person that's been saying things. They're the person when you couldn't figure out how did someone find that out, or who could have told them. I didn't even say that in front of that many people, or how does everyone know this thing about my business? You've been going back and forth about getting rid of this person anyway, because you've had this feeling, but you haven't trusted your instinct. And as always, whenever you get into this Two of Pentacles energy, then the universe has a tendency to make you feel really foolish. Like what? And the intention is trust your instincts. If you knew, then you knew. You don't have to wait for this material world confirmation of your instinct. Your instinct is super sharp and it's right on. So do not hesitate, Two of Pentacles, in cutting off somebody that you have mixed feelings about. In fact, they're not only just, you know, deceptive. This is the bottom of the deck. They're holding back your money. They're holding back your money with their bad energy, with their bad vibes towards your success. And really, you know, in a corporate setting, it can be, you know, it can be sabotage. It can be them going out of their way to make you look bad behind your back, talking about you, taking deals away from you. It can get really bad if you allow this person to stay around. So June isn't going to let that happen. June is like, we got to get rid of this person. Especially you're going to feel this after the 22nd. That's when you start to say it how it is. And boy, does it really shake people up. As soon as you decide that you're going to tell the truth and let people know what they're doing and what they're about, all of a sudden nobody can take it, right? People say the wildest things to you guys and you just take it, you smile, you absorb it. But when you start reading people, nobody knows what to do. All of a sudden, everybody's world is falling apart because you told the truth. Because the truths you know, ooh, nobody even knows how you know. It's hidden stuff. So when you start saying it and you're hitting on things that they have not told anyone, these are their deepest, darkest secrets, insecurities, inadequacies. When you start going for them and telling the truth, it gets bad for them. And I am all for it because they really do deserve it. As we talked about in the beginning here, going back to the beginning of the month, this solar eclipse in Gemini is really about family discord. So that's why I said if you have a maternal figure, especially who is a Gemini, you will feel this acutely. So it's really important for you not to engage and get into some sort of long-winded argument, or it used to be like this, or I should have gotten this, or it should have been more like this, because all you're doing is pushing that person further away instead of healing the situation and healing the relationship, which ultimately you want to keep. So it's just not a good idea to talk about it right now, because everything comes out wrong from both sides. And you know how you are, and you know how Geminis are. Nobody's going to back down. It's going to get vicious. And then you're both left with these deep scars because you're going to cut deep. And then what? And then what? It's not productive. There's no future in it. There's no sense to doing it except to fulfill your pride, and that's just not enough of a reason. So, Jupiter retrograde also means, especially because it's in your sign, it means that you can't take on too much, but you swear you can, and you swear you can get it all done, right? You have to watch your health really closely and do something that reconnects you with your body. A lot of you have felt, you know, kind of like you're floating above your body since Jupiter went into your sign. Like you're not really grounded in it. So doing some yoga, doing some meditating, exercising, walking, running, just stretching, whatever you do to bring your awareness back to the body is really going to help you. And it's also going to be a sign for you if something is going awry or if you're getting too tired. A lot of times the reason you get exhausted is because you aren't that closely connected to your body. So when you get exhausted, you don't know it yourself. You don't feel it because you're not, you know, reading these signals. You're running purely off of this kind of soul energy, right? So being too dreamy can hurt the body in that way. So you want to do a few things to keep yourself connected here and fixed and grounded in the body. Now, the other thing here, and this has to do with what we talked about here with the Judgment and the Tower, and now the bottom of the deck here, the 10 of Cups. There are, in terms of family, in terms of career, in terms of secrets, in terms of friends, there is a huge push in June for you to tie up loose ends. You may not realize it yourself, but most of your stress is coming from these loose ends all over the place in your life in several different areas, to the point where you can't even compartmentalize them anymore because it's in every arena of your life. There is something that is either left undone, unsaid, and it needs to be taken care of. When you take care of it, you will experience this 10 of Cups bliss of having everything in order. And that's really important for you moving forward, because Jupiter being in your sign until July is just the beginning. It's going to come back in October. So we really need to set the tone properly. And I know I've said that before and I'm harping on it, but it's just so important because Jupiter is such a crazy energy. It's just going to make everything bigger indiscriminately. So if you're going in with a bunch of loose ends and you continue to perpetuate that energy, it's just going to give you more things that you can't tie up. We don't need that. One of the keys to your freedom is that you don't let anything latch onto you too tight. And if you look back in your life, you will notice that whenever you were truly damaged or held back, it was when you were holding on to something and you allowed it to hook you. So these hooks, in this case, these loose ends, they become hooks for you and they will weigh you down and hold you back. And it's so important to not let Jupiter make those hooks exaggerated. Right? Good? I love you. Hi Pisces, welcome to the second part of your reading. Happy solar eclipse. Your reading is called Jupiter Illusions, and it doesn't really start until the 20th, so we have a little time. From when Mercury retrograde began until now, you've really only had one thought, and that is if you're satisfied. As multi-dimensional as you are, that can mean many things. It looks like love and this Gemini are first up. There is some broken connection here to this Gemini energy. And it's a shame because you need some of that knowledge. but the connection is so precarious. And you're holding on to so much. And the thing is, the bridge between you and that person, that knowledge, that inspiration, however that Gemini energy is playing out, the bridge between where you are and them, it's not quite strong enough to hold the weight of you and your grudges. Now, if you were to let the grudges go and really embody your own energy as someone who can expose not only others' weaknesses but also your own, then you have a good chance of revamping your energy and being able to move forward with a new mind. It doesn't mean that whatever caused the disrupt in the connection is even necessarily forgiven. It just means that you have understood that those grudges, although you may have found them necessary, even helpful, what you realize in June is that those grudges keep you from being able to walk on that bridge, but also perhaps to walk on many others. And I find that that is something you are very uncomfortable with, that something within you would keep you from being smarter, better. That's enough motivation right there to lighten a load. And a funny thing happens when you do, Three of Pentacles and the World. Things get easier. Venus is in Cancer from now until the 17th, or actually I think that's wrong that I have it written here. I think it's until the 27th. And it brings a harmony. So Jupiter goes retrograde in your sign on the 20th, and you have all this to think about with the grudges and the bridges and all that. But at the same time, you do feel your home life gelling. There seems to be a special magic about it. Everyone is able to be very honestly themselves. Now, the mix of these two things can cause you to pretend that things are there that aren't really there. What I'm trying to say is that it may take you overboard. And although that is preferable for you, nobody else can hold their breath underwater. So it gets a little complicated. If you let the Jupiter illusions run away with you, the Tower is there to reset things. So how do we get to the Tower? You start to feel good about the Venus and Cancer energy coming in. You feel good about where you're at. You feel like you can be honest about where you're at, and others feel that way as well. But when others are honest with you, you have a tendency to jump a couple of steps. And you can lead yourself into some pretty deep waters if you're not careful. You jump to conclusions like no other. But this time when you jump, Jupiter is there to exaggerate the height of it. And you can find yourself in some pretty zany predicaments. It may have you doubting people that you should never doubt. But at the same time, if you're measured and you understand what Jupiter is bringing you right now, then hopefully you can modulate your feelings to account for it and not be afraid of this Nine of Wands perspective. Figuring out that you are not privy to a lot of things about yourself, that's not a disaster. I can understand the initial embarrassment of others being able to see what you're hiding from yourself, but it's also a huge opportunity. And if you don't play with it, if you don't take it personally, there is so much also to gain. And there is insight here into what happens when you gain. Where do you miss a step usually before you get to that happy place? So it's a lot of great realizations, good luck, good feeling, but it's punctuated here and there with these pretty jarring truths about yourself. If you look from row to row, each row has a pretty jarring lesson. Okay, we discussed the first one. The second one, the jumping to conclusions and how it leads to these tower moments, because Jupiter's already pulling everything back that way. This is also something that happens when these transits are not going on. And how wonderful to be able to work on them in this way, because you have this knowledge now that this is, this is what's going to make me react like this. And if you don't take the letting go of the grudges personally, and you don't take the not jumping to conclusions personally, and you let people be and say what they want, then you face this final boss. As we head into July, you realize that this Wheel of Fortune, when you are resolute, it spins very quickly in your direction, and then boom, there is that final realization for the month. What do you skip past? What's that missing step? In Modern Family, there's that one step that needs to be fixed, and Phil never gets around to it. Turns out there was never a broken step, and it was never in the script. He just slipped once and made it up, and they just kept working it into the show after that. And if you remember back to the beginning of that show, it's one of the most endearing things that happens in the first season, because it adds such a normalcy to them. What's your step that needs to be fixed, and why have you decided to indulge it? What is it within you that feels the need to play it small? Or let's just put it another way, not as big as you could. And do you still need it? Is it an outdated mechanism that got you to where you are? Or is it something deeper than that? Is it something taught to you?
It's interesting how many of us, when we look deep into our own programming, realize that we were taught in so many subtle ways that you can't have it all. But at the end of July, you'll be asking why not. So first we gotta go through this in June. All right. Well, all right. I love you, love you. We're gonna get into the extended on Vimeo, but also there's a PayPal link, or you can join the Pisces tier on Patreon, where the first part of this video has been out for a while now. Or you can join Pisces plus the Za, where you can access the motivation morning walks, which are really cool. If you're interested in a private reading, you can click the Cameo link below and receive a 7 to 10 minute recorded reading to your inbox. And if you like these rings, this is the Empress, and this is available through the Quietest Revolution rings link below. You can also check out photos of Rev Fam wearing the rings at the Instagram link below. Speaking of Instagram, if you are interested in a look at your daily astrology and how the transits play out, how they affect your sign, come on over to the Quietest Revolution on Insta and join the Rev Fam. We have a lot of fun. All right, all right. Love you, love you. I'll see you in the extended right now.